There's been so many incredible deadlifts over time, but all deadlifts aren't created equal. In fact, does this even count? Huh? We're gonna talk about this today. I'm building up to a new personal best myself. We're gonna talk about all of the best deadlifts of all time. Let's start with what I believe to be the most impressive deadlift of all time, and I guarantee it's not what you're thinking. It's actually in 2011 when Benedikt Magnússon, no straps, no suit, powerlifting rules, pulled 1,015. We are 13 years later, and that record is still standing. We'll go ahead, we'll pop that in the corner here. Watch, enjoy, and be astounded. This might be the greatest deadlift of all time. Bit of carb fuel. Low on food today. I'm going a bit spinny. It's called strongman induced diabetes. It's type 4. Let me tell you why what he did was so impressive. We're gonna break down some of the rules and why all records are not really created equal. You can either have straps or no straps. And if you have straps, like in strongman, of course you don't have to hold the weight with your hands. There's two advantages to this. One is that the straps hold the weight naturally. Two is you can actually let the bar go into your fingertips a little bit more, so it can cut off about 1 inch to 1.5 inches from the range of motion of the lift. Now, we also have raw versus equipped. Raw being only a deadlift belt. In every version of Deadlift Max for competition, you are allowed to wear a belt. But sometimes you're allowed to wear a deadlift suit, sometimes you're not. There's an argument that there's a safety element in wearing the suit. Genuinely, the suit helps you lift more. I think it turns out as a wash because you're lifting more weight with some extra support and stuff can happen. So that is the best raw deadlift of all time. Grabbing it with his own hands, no assistive supportive equipment, lifting belt, up, chalk, ready to go. And last thing we have to talk about is the bar. He used a normal deadlift bar, where now there's a lot of different options. There's the Rogue deadlift bar, and to me, this is the standard bar that everyone should pull from if you're looking to truly determine your 1 rep max. We also have power bars, which are stiffer and thicker than deadlift bars, naturally making it a slightly harder variation. But then we go the other way, and we have kabuki bars, which are a deadlift bar, but they bend a hell of a lot more. I'm gonna talk about those in a second. We have the elephant bar, which comes off the ground higher than a standard deadlift bar, but it has more whip to it. So if you're someone who's weaker off the floor and strong at lockout, this could really help you, but the opposite could be true. If you're weaker at lockout, it could cause a lot of shaking, which then could cause you to fail the lift. Now, that's Benedikt Magnússon. I'm gonna tell you now about the heaviest deadlift done of all time. Now, there's been many iconic deadlifts in strongman, but I would be remiss not to mention Jerry Pritchett. Now, Thor has the elephant bar deadlift world record. We're gonna talk about him in a minute, but Jerry pulled 1,030 pounds raw on the elephant bar. My PB is around 980 on the elephant bar, to give you a indication of how good and how strong Jerry was. That being said, he didn't fall into our top 2 deadlifts of all time, which I think you guys know. Now, heaviest deadlift of all time, this is gonna be controversial, but it's by Danny Grigsby. The reason it's controversial is because I believe it was a kabuki bar. It was sumo, but there's no denying that he picks up 502 kilos off the ground, around 1,115 pounds. Absolutely absurd. The most absurd, he did it hook gripping. Absolutely the most uncomfortable thing to do of all time. The workaround that is straps. Let's go talk about how to use straps effectively, and then some of the biggest deadlifts ever done with straps. Right, now like I said, 2 advantages with lifting straps. 1, you don't have to hold the weight, and 2, you can gain a bit of range of motion. So traditionally, we're gonna want the tail of the strap out around your thumb. Okay, then that's gonna wrap around the bar and out the heel of your hand. And you can do this as many times as you like, but then your only job is to trap that strap around the bar. So long as your hand has contact with the strap and there's tension in the bar, that strap shouldn't go anywhere. As soon as I lose tension or I pull my hand off, immediately you're gonna lose grip. Now, there's a second way to do this that not a lot of people know about, and this is old school strongman stuff. Now, this is more secure, but much harder to set up. In this way, you're gonna have it coming out the heel of your hand rather than the thumb. And your first wrap, instead of being out the heel of your hand, it's gonna go out your pinky side, and then that's gonna wrap back around, and so now that strap is wrapped around itself. This is the most secure way to hold a deadlift. There is absolutely no way that that's letting go. The big challenge is when you have to do it on the other side. A little bit of practice, a little bit of logistics, and you can do it just fine. But that is how you use straps. Oh, they were sliding. I didn't want to lock it all the way up. $329. Now we're talking about the biggest strongman deadlifts of all time. You guys know who. We got Eddie, then we got Thor. Very contentious, but let's start from a place first that they were using calibrated plates. So they use a scale just like this. Make sure to the gram that those plates are weighed the same. Now you can tell if it's a calibrated plate because it's gonna be very thin, but it's also gonna have a little coin looking thing in the back. And the companies who make them weigh that coin to a perfect degree to make up for any imperfections in the metal. When you use a standard gym plate, you could be 1 or 2, 3 pounds off on a 45-pound plate, which adds up over time. Now, Eddie broke this in 2016. The most incredible part about that is he jumped the world record by about 30 kilos in one night. No one thought that 500 kilos could be done, and he did it. That's probably the most iconic moment in strongman, something where someone just did something that no one believed could be possible. Thor came through a handful of years later. He pulled 501. There's a lot of contention because it was done in his gym, but plates were weighed. They were calibrated plates. I think it was fine as an exhibition lift. We'll call it 501. Happy for you guys to pop in the comments what you think. But let's talk about how to get your deadlift to the best level possible. We'll head back to the deadlift platform and I'll give you some cues. Now, the first thing about getting your deadlift as high as possible is following correct programming. Down in the description is my deadlift peaking program that I use to pull 475 kilos. Now, the first thing you want to get right when you're deadlifting is your core bracing. This is what's going to protect your back more than anything. Test yourself right now. Put your hand on your chest, hand on your stomach. Can you breathe in a way where only your stomach hand moves? If you can do this, you know you're breathing with your diaphragm, and your diaphragm is contracting down, pulling your lungs down. That's going to then free up some ability for you to be able to brace your core into the lift, which basically just means push everything out as hard as possible. That way we have a hard top with the diaphragm contracted, a hard middle with all of our abdominal muscles being pushed out, and a seal at the bottom with the pelvic floor contracting. If you urinate on the platform, anything like that, no judgment, but it's a pelvic floor dysfunction that you should go to a pelvic floor specialist, help that get sorted, not just for the urination, but also for keeping your back nice and safe. Now, the next thing you want to look at is your setup. And mostly, deadlifting is going to be about making it as hard off the ground as it is at the top and vice versa. We don't want any sort of change in bar speed during the lift. Now, in terms of foot placement, if you start really narrow, that gives you a lot of power off the ground, not so good at lockout. And vice versa, if you go really wide, harder off the ground, very helpful at lockout. That's why sumo is hard to break the ground and lockout's a bit of a formality. And conventional deadlifts you'll much more often see from here up here to be more of a struggle. Ooh. The next thing, and an absolute mandatory, regardless of where your starting position is, you gotta make sure the backside of your shoulder is directly above the bar. If it ends up in front, you're gonna end up pitching forward, and if it ends up behind, you're gonna end up pitching forward as well. Now, opposite reasons. One is because the bar is gonna get out in front of you, and one is because your lever is just gonna launch you over the bar. Either way, the result is gonna be not so good. You can self-assess by looking at your deadlift from the side like we are now and saying, are my hips rising at a different rate than my shoulders? Your goal should be that from the ground to your knees, your torso stays at the same angle, and then only at the knee do you start to open up. Now, I'm gonna try to put all that together. I'm gonna attempt a new PP, 440 kilos with no suit raw. For reference, the best I pulled raw when I pulled 475 was 410 kilos. You do the math. Does this mean I could have a shot at 505? Leave that in the comments. That is a far secondary thought for me at the moment. But the way things are going, who knows? Stay tight, let's go. Balance, tight, let's go. Ah, it fell away. I've got it. I've got it, it just fell away from me. All right, 440 not on the cards today, but I think it could have been on the cards. If you watch that video, when I went to pull, the bar rolled away because there's a low spot in these soft mats, and then it's starting away from me, and then got away, a little bit of up and down. Strength-wise, I know that that's there, just a little bit more exposure to heavy loads, heavy deadlifting. I think 1,000 at strongest man on earth, 1,000 raw would be a really good trajectory for 505 in Vegas. I got a little bit of work to do to get there, but personally, I'm calling that a win and a loss. I'm really optimistic, and I'm gonna be smart enough today to just call that and say, if you didn't get the technique right the first time, you haven't earned the right to try it the second time. So, flatter platform next time, but hopefully you guys pulled something from today. Maybe I could be one of the best deadlifts of all time. I think right now, in terms of strongman deadlifts, I think I'm still top 5 with a 475 pull back in 2022, 2021. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.